Yo, 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 welcome to another edition of the Geeky Bros Podcast. It's your boy Darcy here.
And this is Big Geek Umar. We are going to be getting tactics soon. So for all of you guys who are watching, looking for him, he is coming. He's on his way.
Just just slowly cruising on in. He's
Exactly. He's
yeah.
going to slide into our podcast.
You don't gotta make it weird.
I realized the moment it came out, I was like, that didn't sound right. I'm going to apologize. Anyway, so nonetheless, we are sorry for missing you all last week, but we all had multiple different things getting in the way. But we're back this week and we're coming blazing.
Yeah,
So I say we just jump right in. Darce, what do you think?
absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so big news this week. Big news. As you all have probably noticed, we have been, I wouldn't say struggling for content, but we have been having more discussions and less new geeky news updates. Mostly because, as you can guess, the writer's strike and also I should say the WGA strike had been going on for about 5 months, or I think 142 days, 46 days. Okay, something along those lines.
148. I think it was 148.
148 days. I stand corrected. So the writer strike portion, because it was just the writer, it was at first the writers and then the actors joined in on that. Sorry, at WGA, SAG. The writers met with the AMPTP, which is essentially the studios. And for the final, they were actually able to come to an agreement, which was not something that was happening a lot. And I thought when I heard that news, I'm like, oh, I hope the writers got something. I wouldn't say they got everything they were asking for, but based on what I read, they got almost all of it. Again, reading the document was very legalese, so I definitely relied on a variety of different people, including Variety, the article, to kind of give us a summary. And the main argument that kind of started this whole WGA strike, which then ultimately brought in the actors, was the fact that AI generated content was replacing writers. Also, as it turned out, we started finding out that streaming services kind of, to put it figuratively, really fucked over writers and actors. Middle finger.
Yeah. I was just scratching my face. that was just a finger I chose. It was perfect, but it wasn't the one I chose for that reason. It was, but to that point, the amount of money that these writers were getting was pennies on the dollar. So scratch our faces where we can.
Yeah, and he's not exaggerating. It's not a term like a figure of speech. It's a literal statement. Pennies on the dollar were being given to the writers, also to the actors, which came out when the actors started striking. I mean, I think it was Stephen K. Brown or I don't know. It was Mandy Moore. Mandy Moore posted from her residuals from This Is Us. She was getting 42 cents in a year for This Is Us.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, and I'm gonna paraphrase what I remember, but the rules around streaming were defined before we even had YouTube. So they were based around the concept of something like streaming a 30-second thing on the internet. We can all, for those of us that are older, can remember back in the days when we was dial up and you barely could get even an image. You'd be trying to wait for an image and you get that slow loading, and then sometimes it would be like a buffer pass, right? And so the definitions were defined back in those times, and so that the amount that they were allocating for streaming against what it was a completely different medium, and they were just taking full advantage of this lax law and basically this is what we have to pay you, and it's it's obviously not fair, and they're obviously taking advantage of something and being like, we don't have to pay them, so let's not pay them. And instead of being more fair and being like, obviously these are outdated, let's like figure something out. Or, I mean, some studios apparently were decent, but many of them no. And it's like studios, not streaming services, they weren't decent.
Yeah, like I would like so based off of what we were hearing from the WGA and the SAG, the smaller independent companies like Regency or A24 or E Entertainment One, those guys like they didn't care. They said yes to everything, so they actually could still like write and act. But then it got kind of confusing because the people like it was a very fine picket line, and so people were like, you know what, let's just stop until this is all taken care of. Anyway, this is all to say that the writers only have now reached a deal. It's just to like summarize, very paraphrase level. Like this is a 94-page document that still needs to be fully ratified, but it has been like voted for. Basically, AI can't write or rewrite any material. Writers can choose to use AI when performing writing services, but if the company consents to it. So it's like basically both sides need to kind of like come to that realization. But the company can't require the writer to use AI software like ChatGPT when performing writing services. The company must disclose to the writer if any materials are given to a writer and have been generated for AI. So basically, AI is like, no. Also, the companies, this is for streaming services, have to disclose the viewers and ratings of the work. So this is a big step so that writers and hopefully this will carry over to the actors, that both people are able to see how popular, how much the particular thing that they're working on is being viewed, like how much of the content is being like viewed by us, and that they would get residuals accordingly. So what was it? Yeah, so the WGA reserves the right to assert that exploitation of writers' material to train AI is prohibited. So basically, you can't be giving in your scripts to AI to then funnel later. I think this is going to carry over to the SAG, so they can't like do body image scans and keep those on. So yes, Ron R, you're definitely right. Terminator. Basically, Skynet has been blocked from Hollywood
For now.
for now. But I'm not surprised that I should say I am surprised how quickly the studios turned. And it probably has to do with the fact that there are two. Well, one was a lawsuit for AI that was successful, and the other one is, I think, still being like some sort of copyright AI thing. And the judges rule that you can't, like AI can't copyright anything. So it was like this kind of like spearheaded, and the company is also like, for example, I think we talked about in the previous podcast, Warner Brothers lost like 500 million this year due to the writer strike, which is like a third. It's like 3 times what they were asking for overall going forward per year. So they were only asking for like less than 1% from each of the streaming services.
Yeah. Of course, though, what's going to be the response from the streaming services is like they're just going to take it out on people because it's like, oh, well, we're making less money and blah, 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 blah. And now, I mean, less than 1% sounds like very little, but it's significant in a business, right?
It's millions of dollars.
Well, it's not just millions of dollars. It depends on a couple of different things. Like, one, what is their general margin, right? Like, if a business is operating and they only have 1% after everything, and you ask for 0.5%, you're asking for half of everything, right? Like, it's not, people only think about the revenue. And the other part really that's really more fundamental to a business is cash flow, how much money is actually going in every month and it's being taken out. So the one thing I'm curious to see is if when they are having to pay the actors more what they're due and the writers more what they're due, if it's going to put a squeeze because they're overstretched financially, and that additional revenue has an effect, and it means like a lot less content. It means a lot more cancellations. Like I bet we're gonna see a negative out of this from the streaming services because they're not the studios, and they're thinking a little bit differently than the studios do. So yeah, I'm just kind of like waiting for some negative fallback. I mean, the positive though is do less, try to do more quality with the what's left over, but still means that some people aren't going to get paid in the near term when they start canceling stuff.
To be honest, I'm starting to find it difficult to keep up with the streaming services because originally this was penned as something that was a better option than cable. It is present for us to be able to watch all the things we want to watch from all the variety of different streaming services that are out there. It's dwarfing. It's like, I wouldn't say dwarfing yet, but it is more expensive than cable. Go on.
Yeah, I mean it is. I totally agree. And the only benefit that compared to cable though is like, let's say you have $80 a month worth of streaming services and $80 a month on cable. Likely you still have a higher percentage on the streaming services that you actually care about based off the fact you chose them, compared to where like the cable packers like, hey, do you really want to watch these like 19 PBS channels? Like, no, nobody wants to watch all of these public service channels. Why am I paying for this? Why do you just keep telling me there's 375 channels? I only care about 4, and the other 4 I gotta pay more for.
Yeah, I'm not ready to jump back into cable because it doesn't help that like Disney Plus and Netflix are now adding in ads. I think Amazon already has done that, and I'm just like, oh, really? So I'm not there yet, but I'm starting to see, or I'm starting to question how valid having multiple streaming services are. In terms of big movie studios, yeah, I can't really comment as much because, like, the industry far better than I do when it comes to streaming services and like studio behind the scenes stuff. However, with studios regarding films, like writers for films, writers for on that, and actors from that, I can see those being able to funnel offset the costs by putting it in the budget, or I could be wrong.
Offset which cost? Sorry.
The new costs that they have to do due to the WGA.
Yeah, I mean, putting things in a budget is just a fancy way of saying I plan to do this, but doesn't mean I'm actually going to do it, right? Because the most important thing to business is fundamentally, like, if you think of it like a person, right? How much money are they paying you per month, right? And how much are you spending on all the stuff that you have, like your car, your phone bill, all that kind of stuff, right? And if you have more spending than you have money coming in that month, then you ain't running that business. It's gone. Right, like, and that's what it'll come down to, right? It's like how much they have to pay, at what point do they have to pay, and how much does it affect them. Lots of companies make like $100 million a year and then go bankrupt because they can't pay enough in the given time frame, right? At the end of the year is one thing, but month to month. So I'm just saying there's going to be cancellations. Once you start saying, hey, you got to pay out a few more $1 million, there's going to be cancellations.
I mean, they've already started doing cancellations. It makes total sense that they'll continue given the situation. I'm a part because it's very interesting. Like, there was so much focus on the top brass, like the execs and the CEOs making the profits, and that and a lot of the conversations were going towards their salaries being astronomical, and the writers and actors, not like the top actors, but like like the supporting casts and like people who are in multiple shows, that sort of thing. They're all like living like 40,000 a year style lifestyles, and I think one of the things that kind of, I wouldn't say was pushed, but people may have started understanding it that way, inaccurately as it is that this is going to be coming out of the CEO's pockets. So they're going to make less millions each year. But I see what you're saying about like the business portion, because they're not going to take less for this.
No, I mean, we can get to a long conversation about like CEOs and what they're doing and what they're not doing. I'm more, this is like a personal thing, but like I'm more, if you're a founder of a company compared to a CEO, I feel differently about your compensations.
Absolutely. I would agree with that.
It depends on how much risk you put in the game compared to you came in at a time and just started taking compensation. But the definitely actors need to be paid more. And the thing that I want more of is I would definitely want more people to be paid decently. But then there's also on the other side, like actors who make a ridiculous amount of money for roles and movies that are just boring, right? And I'm all for people getting their bag, but then sometimes that inflation, like you have a movie and it's like, oh, this movie has a $200 million budget, and then you find out that the first 100 million is just like 3 people, and you're like, well, that doesn't help.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's like
I see what you're saying.
The Rock just took 60 million of the budget. Like, he can't really act that well. And
He entertains.
Yeah, I mean, like,
but he can't act.
I'm just saying, like, it's just like, we'll get into it later, but like, there are people proving that you can make really good movies for far less, right? One thing I'm a really big fan of, and this was from a studio perspective, I would love to see more studios do this, is Ben Affleck and Matt Damon's studio. Did you hear about the way that they orchestrated the structure of their? So they started their own studio. Their first movie was the one about Michael Jordan. I almost said Michael B. Jordan, but
just natural at this point.
I know, but it was about Michael Jordan's history, and it was really a story.
Air.
Air, and it was a story more about his mother than it was about him. Because she was like really fundamental. Basically, when they would approach him, they're like, they had all these things and whatnot. He's like, this is a story about my mother. It's not a story about nothing else. We're like, all right, we're writing the story. And then they found out how important she was. But what they did with their studio is they give a percentage of the residuals, like the royalties off of the movie, to a lot of the heads of departments. And I would like to see more revenue share, both for for just like the heads of departments, but for actors and stuff like that. Like, yes, there's residuals and all that kind of stuff, but it's just more, if something does well, the people involved should get more for that, right? Versus some people just going from paycheck to paycheck. Like, this movie made millions and I still made the same amount of money as if I did something else. And then they have to go off and do really crappy films because someone's going to pay them a lot of money to do a really crappy film, right? And
like the studio contracts for like multiple pictures.
Yeah, I just feel like if there was more, if the incentive structures are done properly, you can incentivize better films to be done better, and people knowingly going in saying, I'm going to get more out of it if I put more into this, right? Generally incentivize people to do more outside of, horrible actors and directors to deal with in general, because there's plenty of those.
Yeah.
Weinstein.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with this. And I am we'll get into this conversation later on as we keep propping up our future topic. But like the whole AI conversation, and both for actors and writers, I'm glad this has been struck down, and their work and their selves are being retained and not being exploited.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with utilizing a tool. It's another thing to use a tool to replace people in a creative endeavor. I mean, we can talk about mechanics replacing mundane work, but this is a creative endeavor, and we know that if they write movies with AI, we know it's going to be trash, because it's going to be a regurgitation between a bunch of middle things. Like, you probably get 1 or 2 hits a decade out of it that are just somehow a mash of so many things. But I don't think that they're going to be pushing your brain. They're just going to be like, wow, I never thought about if I were to cross all these things together, that would be amazing. But it would still miss a flair, right?
I agree.
It's gonna be like comedy
The
these
spark
days.
of life.
Yeah, but like how comedies these days are like funny, but not really that funny. It's gonna be
They're
like
more
that.
like it's like quips. You're like, huh, and then
Yeah,
kind of like moving on.
yeah. You don't get that many like fall over on your seat, like just pissing yourself laughing, right? Like it's just like that's the equivalent of that in every genre. I feel like that's what A is gonna be. It's like, oh, I've seen this before. This is good.
Yeah. I mean, this is nice. I'm enjoying this for now.
Yeah, waiting for a better film.
Yeah, exactly. All right. We'll see what happens with the SAG. I think they're starting Tuesday, or like Monday or Tuesday is when they're going to start having negotiations again. Given what's happened with the WGA, I think we can see that the studios are kind of backed into a corner now. So if the WGA got such a good deal, there's no way Fran Drescher's not going to let like her actor people to get it.
Yeah, but we'll see though, because maybe the actor's gonna ask for a lot more money, and it's gonna be a longer conversation. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next topic. So we have been discussing quite frequently. We're getting a message from Courtney, leeching off some Timmy's Wi-Fi to watch a couple of minutes of the Geeky Bros. You guys are the best. Very, very kind of you. We respect that, Courtney. I hope Timmy's is feeding you well and you're getting some prime donuts.
And for any of those who don't know, Timmy's is Tim Hortons. It's a Canadian coffee place. It's kind of like Dunkin' Donuts for those who
it is the reference. Canadian Dunkin' Donuts that is literally everywhere and is a lifesaver when you're on oh my god, road trips. I was going to say ride share, and I'm like, that is not what I was trying to. That's not the right term.
However, I've actually realized that Tim Hortons is actually closer to another brand in the United States called Wawa's. So I've just learned that it's closer to Wawa's.
Wawa's?
Wawa's is a.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's Wawa's is interesting because it's like a coffee place, but it's also a gas station. It's interesting, but they're a little more similar to each other. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rodar, are you saying that you like Wawa's better than Tim Hortons?
We'll wait to see what that response is. No.
Oh, the donuts at Tim's. Okay, cool. Wawa's. Okay. Well, now you guys all know this. For those of you who don't live in Canada or America, there you go. So, moving on to our next topic. So we were hopefully Tactics will be joining us. We have discussed. Well, I should say, no. You know what? I'm gonna pass this over to Darcy. If Darcy is still here. Okay.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay.
I was just trying to. I don't got any slides right now, so I was just trying to spice it up and put it on you for a second. Now you put it back.
Okay. Yeah. I had a momentary fear. I'm like, am I the only one in the podcast right now? Okay. So
I will actually when Tactics gets here, and then it's like only you. Amazing.
I want to actually pass it to you because this is your topic. This is like, and I'm sure most of you who've been watching our show know when I say this is your Darcy's topic. We are going to be discussing the One Piece Netflix series. So, Darce, how about you lead us through this one?
Yeah. So before we get into that, the last time we talked about this, correct? You guys only watched half of it. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So let me do a little quick setup here. So yeah, One Piece. If you guys haven't heard of it, it is the anime phenomenon that's spreading around the world so strong that even the ladies of The View are now talking about it. Okay.
I heard.
That tells you everything how popular it is. But yeah, no. Netflix had an 8-episode series on the anime. They adapted like the first 70 to 80 episodes, and you know, it's the first time we've ever had a anime live adaptation that's actually, you know, really caught the essence, leaned into the anime vibe, and just, you know, overall didn't disappoint in those regards. But obviously it's live action, there's only so much you can do, so there's always going to be some flaws here and there. Oh, look at that, we now have some slides. I am really curious. I mean, I'll give you my lowdown. I've said this a few times, but I really enjoyed this season. I loved how this exact scene ended it. I was thinking of a different ending, and then this came in, and I was like, yeah, that was the right way of doing it. I just felt like it really captured a lot of the essence, and for me, that it just made me happy. Like as it progressed, for the most part, I just really just dug into it. It felt like the original content to me. It has its moments where it fails. The cat costume just did not work. You guys thought it was something else.
I thought it was vampires the whole time. I'm like,
just showing you it's not working.
yes.
But on the flip side, though, they did not shy away ever from just leaning into exactly what the characters are like when you see them. There's only a few things that they haven't adapted. Usopp is supposed to have a Pinocchio nose. He does not have that in the show. But I'm really hoping that at some point, there was a TikTok creator who said they hope that because he lies a lot, that at some point they start randomly telling him he has a long nose for lying, and then you just keep saying it to the point that he starts believing he actually has a long nose, and he's just getting insecure about it. I think that would be amazing. But I really love this, and I really want to know, because you guys watched this recently, I want to know what you guys feel from your review perspective. So, Umar, what would you feel?
Okay, so for my background, I have not watched the anime ever. I haven't seen a single episode. I've seen clips that Darcy have sent me, and that TikTok has thrown me every once in a while, and then my friend and and like a couple of friends. But like, I have not watched One Piece. So when I started watching the show, I had only the clips and Darcy's rave reviews about it. I started watching. And we, as we discussed, I found it a little jarring at first, but I, as episodes kept going, I kept acclimatizing more and more. And like you said, some things just were not working. However, enough worked, because I would say when I first started this the season, I was viewing this as like a 6.5. By the end of it, I'm going to give it like a 7.5. I actually would give it a 7, but I'm giving the extra point because they tried, and while it didn't work for me, I don't take points off for them for that.
So you don't like the show?
No, because I'm saying that I would give it a 7, but I'm giving it a 7.5 for like the stuff that worked against me. I'm not taking marks off for the I'm more like I'm taking marks against myself. But I do actually I do enjoy the show, because a 7, I don't give a 7 if I'm not going to keep watching, because I am going to keep watching.
Fucking hater.
There it is. There he is.
No, I'm just trying to find, because you said it doesn't work for me, and I just didn't know what that meant, because it sounds like a blanket statement.
Okay, no, it's not a blanket statement. It's about the stuff that didn't work. I believe they didn't work for me. I don't think they're objectively didn't work. Like, for example, I found a lot of the lines very cheesy and very difficult for me to accept. However, some of those lines, not all of them, some of those lines, if as an actor, if someone comes to me and is like, this is what you have to say, you got to act like this person while saying it, and this is your backstory towards doing it, I don't know how fuck you're going to make those lines work.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
So I'm not going to be like, yo, this director, this writer, and these actors all fucked up. No, they didn't. they tried to adapt a cartoon that is meant to be wacky, and they're trying to replicate the essence and the heart of it while also being giving homage. I'm not going to tell these people how to do their jobs, because I don't even know how to, when I've been upset about stuff in DCEU, MCU, freaking CW, I have shit to say and things for them to fix. This, I got no notes because I don't know how to make it work. So I'm not going to deduct marks from them just because I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, instead of being like, well, this is difficult, let's just do something completely different. They're like, no, we're gonna do it and respect it. The one thing I haven't watched the show in English, but I would also there are, when I've seen clips of certain things and watching this show, like they got the essence for me. But yeah, there's definitely some stuff that I'm like, "Oh, that's not exactly how it is for me." And I think that there's also a Japanese sense of humor that may not translate 100% into the English. Plus character voices. Even when I listen to like the English dub version, I'm like, yo, why they choose that guy? Like the voice is so different for me. Like it doesn't have the gravitas or doesn't have this. And like Luffy has something that they don't have at all in the English one that really bothers me. His laugh is kind of halfway between joy and a witch. It's kind of a cackle. It's like a joyous cackle, and it's very unique, and it's you love him for it because he's just like he's got this like like kind of like up and down like just kind of hard laugh that's just like it's so ridiculous and it's just so loving, and when you bring it to English it doesn't quite translate. So for me, some of that stuff where it's like, yeah, the lines are rough for me, I also know like they're rough because they're not the Japanese, and so for me I'm like, yeah, it doesn't translate very well, but like at least you're doing it. At least you're not like completely changing it. But yeah,
Yeah, and like so the last time we reviewed this, when I was halfway, I think Tactics was like one episode ahead of me, and he was talking about oh my god, the dude with this massive sword, Miwok or something. Mihawk. Yeah, so like you guys were talking about like a massive disrespect, and I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? And then I saw it, I'm like, dude, that's some bullshit. Yo, fuck you. Like,
you know what that was? You remember Men in Black 1 where he hands him the small little gun? He ends up being the powerful one.
Noisy cricket.
That was a noisy cricket. He pulled out the noisy cricket sword. And it was like, oh yeah, go on though.
Yeah, so like watching that, because like. There are times the episode, like the camera angles, I can respect the fact that they're doing the usual camera angles from anime. I like that. It's weird, but like I can get used to it. Some of the acting I recognize as very anime-like. So like there's times I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna just accept that. But I know what they're doing, and I appreciate them. But then like when some of the action sequences happened, like when Mihawk showed up. And like I was like, okay, this is actually working for me. And then he like does that thing. I'm like, okay, that's some bullshit disrespect. But then I'm like, yo, I've seen this happen multiple times in anime, and it landed hard. Now when they cut him, when Zoro gets cut, I'm like, yeah, I can imagine the anime would be a lot more bloody than this, because like he just looked like someone just like lightly grazed his stomach, and everyone's like, he's lost so much blood. I'm like, has he? And then I actually went and checked it out in the anime, and like, brother got cut down.
Yeah.
So I'm not like, I found myself not liking something and then immediately supporting it. It's like when you see your kids play, you ain't watching Oscar level stuff, but you proud of them when they do shit and when they get their line out, and you're like, yo, this is kind of like that. I don't have the love for it the way you do, Darcy, but I get it.
Yeah.
So that's why like I can't give it more than because I would give it a 7, but like that's if I'm just giving my initial reaction. But my respect for the show makes me give it a 7.5. Like I'm not going to deduct marks just because there are certain things that I don't like. So like I'm giving it a 7.5. I'm going to see season 2.
And I will say that if that's how you feel, watching the anime would double, or not double, but like bring you like 2 more points, because you already got over the weirdness of the show. The show is wacky. Like when you watch the anime,
so weird.
It's wacky, but the anime is cartoonly drawn, almost like American cartoonly drawn. Like it's especially the early seasons, and so but it evolves over time, and so it's if you can accept its weirdness, which it doesn't take that long to accept because there's something really like it's leaning towards. You're like, this is really interesting. It just builds into this beautiful thing. It's a lot slower than the beginning, but like every anime from the 90s is. And so it just is what it is. But yeah,
I will say, okay. Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, like I will say that Luffy, I want to like the character. I find the character to be a type that I've seen in shonen and that I like. Nami is someone that like I actually have massive respect for the actress because apparently she's the one who's like the massive weeb on the show. So like all to her. Zoro, I like the actor, how he's portraying him. I know that that character arc immensely. I will say I can't stand Usopp, but like I think I probably just need another season to get used to him. Sanji is the only one I don't believe. Like all the other characters are their characters, and I believe them, which is why like I'm not a huge fan of Usopp because I'm not a huge fan of the actor of the character. I like the actor, not the character. Sanji, I don't like the actor as because I thought I would, given what I learned about like how he prepared for the role, but for some reason it's just bothering me. However, his episode,
He's
the
French.
kid,
it's the Frenchness that's bothering you. and the reality is his character is very French. In the anime, he's very French. To the fact that he has a French accent while speaking Japanese, which I absolutely love because he says when he's in love with Nami, right? And he's like Nami Schwan, and he takes a san into like Schwan, and it sounds like a swan. And I'm just like, what? And I had to like look it up. I'm like, is he actually saying this? Everyone knows he's saying this. He's like, he changes things into like when he's really affectionate to a woman, and he's such a simp. It gets worse over time. Like, it gets so much worse.
He's not a simp in this though.
Oh, he becomes such a hardcore simp. There's a whole arc where now he has like bleeding nose every time he's around beautiful women. Like, it's insane. The show is so ridiculous. The thing that you don't love about Usopp and stuff like that is that this show, where this really lacks, is showing interpersonal relationship. It doesn't spend a lot of time on it. And what you end up loving about Usopp and all these characters is they have these like dynamic moments where like for instance, all the guys love stupid guy stuff, right? Like someone shows up with a robot and all of a sudden they're all like googly eyes and having a good time. And there'd just be like different dynamics with different characters where like Luffy will say something stupid and then there'll be like Usopp and another character in the background be like Nami, like Nani, like and it's just, and the way they acts like real people. It's very very real, and like you can anticipate like certain things are gonna happen, and someone asks a question like a brand new person to the ship. You know this character's gonna respond. You know these other three characters are gonna be in the slide out in the background and just give like a funny response to it. You just know, and so there's like some of those you're missing because Usopp is like the pathetic liar who's also in a ridiculously good sniper over time, and he becomes extremely important in certain moments. But he's always like a whole ass bitch all the damn time. He's always like whining and complaining about the fight, but then Luffy would be like, "Shoot this thing," and he'd be like, "Done." Right? It just he's super clutch, and then he's whiny the whole time because he's super underpowered and everyone's OP, but he does stuff that nobody else can do, which is amazing. But anyways, I'll stop there.
All right. Well, I'm pretty much out. So like T, I'm gonna volley it to you, man. Like what? Since you watched the whole series, what do you think overall? What would you rate it overall?
I share both your sentiments. I really enjoyed it. I think I'd give it, in terms of my rating, I think I'd give it probably 7.8.
Oh,
7.8.
So 7.5, 7.8, 8. Let's go.
Yeah, like it started off kind of on the lower side for me in the beginning because, like you guys said, it is a weird fucking show. Like, I was like, what am I watching? And I don't know if I can commit to this like full time. But it definitely has legs. It grows on you for sure. And I started getting really invested in a lot of the characters. Love Luffy. Love Zoro.
Really?
Yeah. I okay. Any character that does like a bunch of flips and shit like that, I'm sold. I'm like, yo, this guy's dope. Like I'm in. And the shit that he was doing was entertaining to me. And yeah, I like his humble, kindred spirit. Like he's got a certain aura about him, a certain presence that I don't know, that pulls me in, and his determination and his, like, again, we go back to this whole being a delusional, having delusional determination, being a delusional dreamer. Like he embodies that to a T, and it's awe-inspiring to me. So I'm easily captivated by characters like that that give you hope. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, oh man, this motherfucker's not wrapped too tight. He's kind of crazy, but he sells it so well to the point where I'm on board. Like if I was part of that crew, I'd be like, all right, you crazy, but I'm with you. And that's exactly what Zoro did. Zoro was like, yo, I'm not part of this crew, bro. So like, stop saying that like we're like a crew when we're not. And then he basically saw what Luffy was all about, and he was like, oh, okay, like I vibe with this guy. I'm gonna be his what do they call it? Secondhand man or
his first mate.
First mate, yeah. So
I also love that none of them know how to like you ride a boat. Work a boat.
Yeah, I mean that changes later. They do pick somebody up who knows boats extremely well, but that's like that's actually one of my favorite arcs. Period. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah. So overall, I liked it. 7.8. I liked what is it? Arlong.
Yeah.
Yo, Arlong was cool. I'll give him that.
Yeah. He was cool. He was a hoe ass bitch. I was like, oh, okay, that's what we doing up here. All right, cool.
Yo, he kept that girl in he kept her like and like made her like draw maps 24/7. And then it was like, yo, happy birthday.
And then sold her out.
Yo,
100%. That was a bitch move. I was like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, 100%. Yo.
You know what though? Like so do you notice like this whole scene here? Did you notice like the tone when they came in and someone's like they're not even hiding it? Like what race are they supposed to be if they were humans? Did you pick up on that?
Oh, the Negros, man.
I thought there was more than that, but okay.
No. So the reason is because later on you find out that there's a huge backstory between the fishmen and the humans and how the humans enslaved the fishmen. And it's the reason why he just is so visual is because he hates humans. He hates humans, and they do a good backstory as to why he hates humans and why there's such a conflict between fishmen and the human race. And it's deep. Like it's a really big like 80-90 episode arc, and it's deep. So yeah, like there's a lot behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, overall I liked it. I have nothing really else to add.
I do want to ask one thing, T. What did you think about the fights?
I enjoyed most of them. For me, I think the weirdest thing to wrap my head around, and Darcy said that this was kind of his shtick, but the French guy, like the way he fights with like just his legs, like that for some, like I got it, but it just looked weird. I'm sure it works in the anime, but for some reason, because I'm sure they had him on like wire. A harness or a wire or whatever, right? So I don't know. For me, it felt very gimmicky, and obviously the show is like a whole bunch of gimmicks, but it just like that kind of just took it over the top. I was on board with the snail shit, even though it was hella weird.
I love my snails.
I will never forget how your girl like it was like we're talking at dinner and she's like, yeah, he's telling me, he's like referring to like that. He's like, he's telling me about this show, and I'm just like looking at him, and then he brings up the snails, and he's like, I didn't believe him, and so he had to show it to me. I was like,
yeah, because I'm like they talk like they have snails as phones, and she's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like it's like a deck. It's a phone that looks like a snail. I'm like, no, you didn't hear me. The phone is the snail, and she's like, wait, what? And I'm like, okay, you know what? I just have to show you.
you can't explain this. Oh,
and then I showed her, and she was like, oh, so it's a snail phone. I'm like, exactly.
It's a live snail. That's the phone.
Yeah, they're amazing because they emote. They emote the other person, and then they'll have like snails dressed up as like the character that they're part of. Oh, it's so good. I can't remember what other medium, but there was some other show that had a similar idea, not snails specifically, but like they used a random object to be something else. Yeah, Mihawk. Yeah, I mean he's badass. He's far more Dracula in the anime though. They don't fully capture that here. He's like paler, whiter skin, and just very much the Dracula of the universe. But yeah, no. Going back to the Sanji thing though, and it gets explained at one point. He never uses his hands to fight, and he ends up fighting another cook at one point, and he's like. As a chef, you're never supposed to use your knives to hurt people because you're only supposed to use them to make food. So it's like part of his like belief system. But he's like, but for you, I'll make an exception. Because the cook is disrespecting the rules. So he's like, for you, I'll make an exception. Right. And then it's the only time he ever fights with his hands. And you find out he's like Zoro level with blades. He is literally holding himself back.
I will say that having I'm going to admit to a massively dorky thing, but like having seen people put swords or knives in their mouths for fighting in anime, I decided to test it out a couple of times to see if I had the jawstring for it. I do not. Shut up! You knew where I was going with this.
I had no idea where you were going with that, to be
honest. So many problems with what you just said.
It was at one point, like the second time I tried it out, almost had an accident that was difficult, but thankfully it didn't happen. Anyway, so the concept of seeing Zoro.
Don't ever say that again in public. Don't ever say that.
I mean, why would you say that when it's recorded?
But when I saw him put like the sword handle in his mouth, I'm like, yo, this is not gonna look real. And like it looked like he made me believe he could cut me with that thing. And I was like, I respect it. Like there is a lot of like I don't disrespect Sanji actor. I just don't believe him. And I don't believe the character. But overall, I have a shit ton of respect for everyone involved. Literally everyone involved. While I'm giving this a 7.5, while I would want to naturally give it a 7, if someone's going to come after the show, I'm going to be defending it.
Wow, I like to hear that. I like to hear that.
I'm going to be defending it because bro, how would you do this differently? There is no way you could do this. This is the only way. They're doing it.
This is Oda's way, so get over it.
100%. So and this guy, I kind of want to I didn't get the Dracula vibe, but to be fair, I was only watching it from Zoro's action sequences. So I mostly saw the back of his self and seeing Zoro throwing stuff around. So I probably didn't get a look at him, but I liked how this actor played it.
Yeah, I mean he's rarely ever in the show, but every time after this first introduction, you're afraid every time. There's a big war he shows up in. It's a big war, think almost as big as the Fourth Great Ninja War, and it's not the end of the show. And so he shows up in it, and I was so afraid. But then he's kind of he's a warlord, so they don't really work for the government. So he shows up to basically do the minimum standard and fucks off. He's like, I have to be here, basically. Cut something, leaves. It was pretty much he was there, but he was not really trying. At one point, just standing there, do something. He's like, I don't have to. And it's what? It's what are you gonna do? The guy could literally cut an island apart. What are you gonna say? Yeah. I have a question though, because this show, especially the anime, has amazing moments where it really teaches you something. You guys haven't seen this yet, but there's a character named Tom that ever since he taught me a lesson in this, it has literally been ingrained in me ever since, and I repeat it to myself with all big tough decisions in my life since meeting this character. So since you guys have had the first big introduction to one of the big emotional moments that for most people in the anime was a turning point, right? When some people were like, I don't know, whatever, because the anime is obviously slower from the first 80, 100 episodes, right? And then people saw this and okay, I'm all in now. How did you guys feel at the Nami moment when she looked back and she said Luffy, help me?
You go, T.
That's a good question. I felt for her in that moment because once it was revealed why she was doing what she was doing and the conviction that she had demonstrated throughout her journey, and then just seeing the level of like defeat on her face, she was literally helpless, and she had created this perception of basically disowning everyone and anyone who ever cared for her, and didn't disclose why. So she was living with this burden of being ridiculed and villainized for the decision that she made. And that's a heavy burden to carry with you as from childhood to adolescent, or well, not adolescence, but like, however,
adulthood.
Yeah, adulthood, right? So in that moment, there was like you could see the moment of weakness, and it's a good contrast because Luffy, based on like his character up until that point, he was very aloof to certain things, not like, and like he was kind of like airy fairy and like head in the clouds kind of thing. But in that moment, he had such like determination and conviction. It was just like, yo, like, now shit's about to get real. You just hurt my friend, so now I'm about to fuck shit up. I'm about to handle business. And just that whole, I know you were specifically asking about
that's part of it. It's both the Nami and the Luffy. The part I'm asking about all of it.
Yeah, so it was just like there was a dramatic character shift in that moment where it was like, oh, we're seeing completely different sides of both of these characters that we haven't yet gotten. And it's very interesting because she was very much a very determined, very like, I'm gonna do this by myself. Like, I don't need anyone, just, solo dolo kind of thing. Whereas Luffy was all about like, like I said, he was very airy fairy, head in the clouds.
His crew.
Yeah, he was all about his crew and everything. But then you see the shift where it's like, now, okay, she's gone from being solo dolo to like being like, okay, like, I can't do this on my own. I need, like, I got to this point by myself, and I dropped the bag and I fumbled. And now I'm at a loss. I don't know what to do, and I can't do this by myself. And Luffy's just like, he doesn't rub it in her face. He doesn't make her feel guilty about it. He's just like, okay, I know, and I'm here to help you. No other questions asked. He doesn't give a fuck what the intent. I didn't even think he at that point he knew why she did what she did. He just
no. Add a little bit of context from the anime. They get to the island and everyone's saying some bad stuff about her, she said she's gonna leave, and everyone's like, I guess we should fuck off. And he's like, he knows character about people. He knows they're good, so he goes, I don't believe her. She's lying. I'm not going anywhere. And then everyone's going and finding out this backstory, and he says, I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. He just ignores all of it. He just knows there's something deeper.
Yeah.
And when he's sitting around and he's told, he falls asleep. He doesn't pay attention to the story, which is his aloofness, right? And then he just waits for her. And then when she finally asks, he knows. He just knew something was there. He didn't need to know what it was. He just knew he needed her to ask for help. And until she was ready to ask for help, he wasn't leaving, and he was waiting to help her, but he always requires that they come to that moment of themselves, and then he will jump in. But he won't do anything for them until they're ready for it.
And this is what I love about anime, because it reflects or parallels life in a lot of ways. Because I think in that moment, that just goes to show like true friendship right there. And that's how it should be. Like, if, for instance, like if I heard rumors being spread about any one of you guys, right? Rather than taking that as gospel and be like, oh shit, Darcy did that, or Umar said that, or whatever, I'm going straight to the source. And I want to hear it coming from your lips. I want to hear, I want you to be able to defend yourself. If word on the street is true, I want it to come from the source and not from any external factors. And I feel like in that moment that he honored that. He was like, and the thing is, it's like they didn't really know each other all that long, but it was just like you said, he's like, he knows character, and it's almost like a sixth sense for him. It's like an additional power that he has, where he's just like, I just know people, and that's a rarity, because people are often, whether in this series or just in general in life, people are very quick to judge people based off of like superficial things and
Or
not really,
apathetic.
yeah. And so I rate that in that moment. That was a dope scene.
I also I had a little bit of context beforehand because I had watched the scene because you sent it to me, Darcy. But like for me, like what I found I loved, which I was banking on, I saw and I was happy with, was the humanity that Luffy showed in that moment. Like it was a mixture of what, like I agree with everything you said, T. And I like the added context you gave, Darcy. But like I will also say that like I like the fact that Luffy's idea of a pirate is like a borderline humanitarian. Like he's a pirate of the heart.
Yeah.
And it's just like everyone's like, he's like, I'm a pirate. Everyone's like, all right. But like that, so I like calling him the pirate of the heart because he wins people over against their will, literally against their will. And so that's, I think, what defined both of their characters in that moment.
You know what? Actually, add a little more to that is like, Luffy actually isn't a humanitarian. He just
No, I know.
No. But what I mean by this is it's a very interesting nuance you learn. His belief is freedom. He believes that people should be free and that people should unabashedly chase their dreams. And he does not want to allow people to not believe in themselves and their own dreams. And so if he sees, like, there's like an arc that's happening right now, and I've seen a clip from it. I haven't seen it because it's hundreds of episodes ahead of me. But somebody says something like, oh, it's okay, whatever, and he just looks at them with such passion and like ferocity in his eyes, and just is saying, he's like, I'm going to make a place that you can eat whatever you want, because clearly these people are enslaved and they can't eat whatever they want. And he's like, when I leave, you're going to live in a place where you can eat whatever you want, right? Basically, don't hold back on your dreams. Their person's dreams probably is to just eat freely, right? He believes in freedom, and he's a pirate. But then whenever he goes somewhere, he's so childish in that he just sees adventure. People will be like, don't go there, that's dangerous. And he'd be like, that seems like fun. That seems like an adventure. And he just is free to just do what he wants and just live it out. And then he finds people who are not free, and he liberates them to freedom, because it's his belief in freedom, not so much like just doing good. Like there's times where like they want to steal, now he wants to steal, and he's like, all right, cool. Like he doesn't care, right? He just doesn't care. Like, all right, we're pirates, do what you want. Like pirates are free to do what they want if that's what you want to do. But he just doesn't want to hurt bad people or hurt good people, right?
Yeah.
And so, but he has a lot of fun doing a lot of stuff that's also like, there's moments where you're like, he's not, it's kind of like Goku in that he just wants to keep fighting, whereas this guy just wants to be free. And sometimes you'll do stuff and you're like, well, that's not what Superman would do. It's like, nope. He's a pirate. he's not like all good. He's not bad either. It's just like, it's a little bit funny nuanced.
Like just a final moment before we move on to the next topic. I want to say regarding Luffy, the actor who's playing Luffy, he's a Mexican actor. I haven't seen him in anything else. I'm not sure if he's done anything else, but I like how he plays Luffy, granted without knowing what Luffy is like in the anime, because the way I see it is a guy who got his dream job and is just like bringing that wide-eyed, I got my dream job to the role and making it a part of the role.
Yeah.
And makes me kind of like root for him is not the right word, because I'm like rooting for the show. It's like relate to the actor's efforts.
Well said. The real Luffy. Like if animated could be real, he would love that.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to our next topic. So this has not been getting this film that we're about to review, spoiler free, has not been getting a lot of press. But it was something that I had clocked a while back and brought to the group, and we all saw the trailer. Darcy and I got a chance to watch it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And Darcy, how about you go first, man? What did you think of the creator?
I saw that coming before you pushed that up. I was like, dying. Umar, for context, that's Tyler, the creator. He's a rapper and a singer. He also is black, so is the main character. Not really related.
I was so confused.
It's like when he's not on camera. This is what John.
John David Washington.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that killed me. What was your question?
So for the creator, the movie about AIs at war with humans, like the zillionth one, with John David Washington as the lead role, and Gareth Edwards, who directed Rogue One, a Star Wars story, being the writer, the co-writer, and the director of the film.
Yeah. So what are my general thoughts on it?
Spoiler free.
I love this film. And the more I'm learning about this film, the more I'm loving this film. This film was cinematically beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous. And this is not spoiling for the content, but it's just I'm trying to hype this movie up right now. So this film was done on an $86 million budget. Ooh. And it outblows, like, it's at the closest CGI comparison would be Avatar: Way of Water. Okay? Like,
he's not wrong.
It's that level. It blows everything Marvel does out of the water with a third the budget, basically.
You don't like, honestly, like, as much as I love Thanos doesn't hold a candle to these graphics.
No, because these guys really, the director has a VFX background, and he's smart. He knew that you have to capture a lot of stuff in camera. They were very smart. They chose a very affordable camera instead of the more expensive one, but it still got IMAX level. They filmed everything on set, and then the one thing they did, and I'm just doing this to hype it because I just need to hype this film.
Hype it, brother.
They filmed the whole thing, right? They brought it back. They edited the whole thing into a 5-hour film. Then they cut it back down to its final 30-minute film. 3 hour. It's a short story.
It's a 2-hour and 13-minute long film.
Yeah. They cut it down to its final theatrical length. Then they sent the whole film off to VFX, knowing that the VFX team would now, and all the CGI work, would not have to ever re-edit a scene last minute like She-Hulk, where like they're going to change it like the day before we get it. Like, how good are the graphics going to be? Sometimes it takes you 12 hours just to render a graphic, so you give the guy like 10 minutes to make the change. Like,
or the Flash.
Oh my god. And so these guys knew exactly everything they're working on. It's just beautiful. And the guy who directed this, he's done Godzilla. He what was the other one he did? Godzilla. What was the other film that was really big? Rogue One, yes. And he does an amazing job of scale and world and environment. So you really can feel how big everything is. It's like a war, and you really see the scale of the machines. You see the scale of the AI. You see how the AI is integrated into the world. It feels very real, very organic. Actually, another film that I'd say that the graphics are at the same level of, or it's actually better because it's still more advanced. What was that one where the aliens lived on the planet and it was shot in South Africa?
District 9.
Oh, District 9.
Yeah, it's like that in that it's very grounded, very natural, very organic. It's just beautiful. And then going to the actual content of the story. Actually, let me say this quickly before the content of the story. Acting is phenomenal. Everyone does an amazing job. Like, hands
Agreed.
down. This man, we already know he's good. He's not getting worse, okay? The rest of the cast, all amazing people, phenomenal. A lot of Asian representation in this film because it's filmed in a place called New Asia, which is just like an amalgamation of multiple different countries.
They had multiple languages speaking. There was Hindi, Japanese, Chinese, Thai. Like honestly, I couldn't keep track.
Yeah, I want to rewatch this and see if I can hear some Khmer in there. But anyways, all the acting is phenomenal. Now, getting to the content of the story, the thing for me, tactics. Remember the four of us, not including Umar, in this, went out for a double date, and we watched a movie about artificial intelligence called Megan.
Yes.
You remember how I was such a fan of the artificial intelligence in that film? This is fundamentally the opposite for me, because it shows this integration of AI in our world, and yet fear mongering around that integration. This movie projects the idea that artificial intelligence could be good, but our human ignorance and our fear could view it wrong and use it wrong.
And disinformation being programming against it.
Yeah, we were having this deep discussion right after the film, and I made this statement that I'm like, it's programming versus programming. The programming of the artificial intelligence against the fear-mongering programming in the humans, right? Like telling humans the wrong information, and they're being programmed to think something that isn't true to reality, and everyone's fear about the programming that the AIs have and what it could do and what it's actually not doing.
And there's also an interesting aspect where, like, sorry to cut you off, Darcy, that like the programming of empathy for the AIs was so consistent, and the fear mongering from humans are so consistent that's essentially what caused the war to start.
Yeah,
and also makes us sympathize with the AI ultimately.
Yeah, the AI, it's beautiful because they have so many different iterations. Like you got these guys here that have more of a like a UFO kind of head. You got ones that look very inspired by things like grasshoppers' heads. You got ones that are very obviously humanoid, where they have human faces, and yet there's so much like expression, and you can see empathy even in characters who have nothing to emote, and yet they use the body language. Like there's this one AI that you feel for, and he's very like one AI saying, "I think we should do this," and he's not with it. He's just like very expressive. He's just like, it's like the frustration. You can feel the acting, and he has no facial expressions other than like a jaw that moves and eyes that maybe kind of like move a little bit but don't really. And they're like, the eyes are like light bulbs, like they're like, or like a flashlight. It's like they're not really like something that can emote. And so yeah, it's a really good film. Now, is it a film like I'm gonna watch over and over and over again? I don't know. Like the more I sit with it, the more I kind of want to go back and watch it again. Like my first gut reaction is like I don't know if I want to watch it multiple times, but now the more I sit with it, for me it's like creeping up on me like the Batman. It's just something so interesting about it. Like I do think I need a second dive into this. Which, since I mentioned that, the cinematographer who helped consult on this film in the beginning also worked on Matt Reeves' The Batman,
and Dune.
And Dune, yeah, and he literally helped consult, then had to leave to go for Dune 2. So, all good company in the production of this film. So yeah, it's really good, and yeah, solid. Like for me, 8 out of 10. I think that people need to see it because I think it's important conversation that we don't only get our misinformation about technology from things like Megan, and we just live in fear. So
yeah. So for me, I'll say that I gave this a 7.5. I like. Let me put it this way: I like the film. I wanted to love it, but I liked the film. But I was kept from loving it, not because of acting. Acting was phenomenal all across the board. Like the freaking the actress who plays Alfie, like the young girl in the AI young girl, had me to tears. John David Washington killed it. Gemma Chan killed it. Ken Watanabe killed it. There was no bad acting here. Like Allison Janney, who plays the villain, it's hard to even call her a villain because like you get that she's like dehumanized the enemy to such a degree that she's like, I'm just turning off a toaster. Why is everyone getting mad at me about this? So like it's the acting is on par. The dialogue is actually not bad, and like I can't say as technically correct and how like eloquently as Darcy put it, but the graphics are just like they have flying spaceships and AI having battles. If I didn't have to remind myself that everything I just saw was CGI, I would be like, yo, man, they caught the camera really well with those AI and that like that flying saucer, or sorry, not flying saucer, that flying like spaceship. Or not even a spaceship, more like an orbital ship. Nonetheless, these things that obviously don't exist in this world I forgot they were fake.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so my problem with this film was the narrative pacing, because I know the story they were trying to tell. I like the story they were trying to tell, and I would say they were relatively close to executing it well. But you really feel that a much longer story was really cut down to make this a film. Like, if this was a 3-part series that they just like they all filmed together like Lord of the Rings and like released in 3 parts, I think this would be like the trilogy that would make me cry my eyes balls out by the end of it. If you told me they wanted to do a mini series out of this, I would be like, this would have been a perfect size for a mini series. But the fact that they wanted to do a 2-hour and 13-minute little film, I think is the main issue here, because the narrative in the first act was good. Second act, still relatively good. There was a lot of exposition and like forcing you to connect with characters that I was like, I need a little bit more time with this, but I get that it sucks. And then in the third one, they just were like rushing through plot points. And I'm like, those are really good plot points. Go back. Okay, here we are. And so like, that's my problem with the film. It was rushed when and I wanted more. Like, if they ever come out with like, I don't think they will, but if they ever come out with a 5.5 hour like director's cut Blu-ray for the creator, I am going to be front and center buying that thing because I want to watch the full 5-hour story. Like, that's how much of yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say on that 5-hour piece though, I think likely the studio just didn't want to fund 2 films, but I think 2.5 hour films, like that would have been the way to get the whole thing out.
100%.
However, I think that the likelihood of us getting like a director's cut of this being like 3.5 hours would be more likely of a thing to potentially ever happen, right? Because it's like you tack on 40 minutes to an hour onto this, you're still cutting it down, but you're just adding in all the pieces
more streamlined. Yeah.
I think that would be the place, because I mean the 5-hour cut, there's got to be like 20% of that it's just like not needed, right? You're just like, oh, we don't need all that. Like, even the director be like, it's a waste, let's cut this.
Yeah, fair enough. But nonetheless, like this made me want to watch more. This made and something you said, Darcy, like I was critical coming out of it, as you know me, but on the drive home, when I was getting ready for bed, when I was about to go to sleep, when I slept, was all thinking about this film. Like the shows of empathy from a mechanical being, the wanton dehumanization, the surprisingly massive amount of vilification of the American military, which I'm not used to from an American film, and like just like the rawness of humanity in several scenes just stayed with me. And like this film reminded me of the magic of the magic and the film and the art of filmmaking without it being like the big Hollywood budgets and bullshit. And I want to love it really badly, but I had trouble with the narrative pacing.
Sometimes you just gotta watch a film, bro. You just gotta watch a film, okay? Sometimes you gotta stop analyzing it while you watch.
Bro, you know who you're talking to? That's impossible for this guy.
I know. The guy out here, like, let me just hold up. Let me slow the movie down. You gotta take some notes.
Yo, T, just before we move on, like, what are your thoughts on watching this film now that you've heard what we have to say?
Well, I checked out IMDb. IMDb gave it a 7.3, which is good in my books. And just hearing you guys talk about it has me even more interested in checking it out. I was already planning on watching it, but you guys have really sold the film for me, and it looks interesting. And with the boom of AI being what it is now, I'm interested to see how they highlight that now, because back in the day when we used to watch Terminator, and like shit like that was like so far removed from us because we were like, okay, yeah, that's probably gonna happen in like not even in my lifetime. So it's like it's good entertainment. But now when you see like movies like this and you're like, oh shit, this is actually like a lot closer than I thought it was gonna be. So it has you a little shook and intrigued at the same time. So yeah, I definitely want to check it out and see what it's all about. And I'm sure my lady would love this too. So yeah, I'm probably gonna end up watching it at some point, maybe next weekend.
Nice. Well, I look forward to us being able to have a full review about this when you're able to.
For sure.
Moving on to our final topic and also our episode name topic. Should there have been a Man of Steel 2 before Batman v Superman? Now, before we dive into this discussion, I just want to give some prefacing towards it. I was watching John Campea discuss this. He is like Darcy. He's a big fan of Man of Steel, and he's also a big fan of Henry Cavill as Superman. Not that any of us is against Henry Cavill. We all love him over here. But he kind of posed in his podcast, should there have been a Man of Steel 2? And it kind of became a big discussion about the DCEU, how it was run, also the direction it went, and also how they wanted to kind of like showcase things. So just for context, Man of Steel came out in 2013, and the next... Man of Steel basically started the DCEU in 2013, and the next film in the DCEU was Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Now, John Campea asked, should there have been a Man of Steel 2 before BvS? And then he asked a secondary question, if BvS was good, would it have even mattered? So I kind of want to pose that to my bros. And T, I kind of want to start with you, man.
So you know how I feel about BvS. You know how disappointed I was. And what's hilarious about that, I'll never forget this, is how excited Darcy was. I just remember we were all going in, and Darcy had already seen it, and he's like, "Yo, I can't wait to talk about this with you guys."
I was the exact opposite because I went in and I'm like, "Oh my god, if everyone loves it, I'm fucked."
And then we walked out, and Darcy was quiet, bro. It's like,
He's like that. I felt defeated, deflated.
So Darcy was like, "Yeah, so that was some bullshit, right, guys?"
Oh my god! At first, I to be honest, I was still enjoying it on my second watch, and I came out and I was like happy, and I just like look at you guys, I'm like, yeah, oh fuck.
But yeah, actually, that second question is actually a very interesting question. Like, if BvS was actually good and well received, would it have mattered? I think if BvS had been more successful, then it would have set a really good tone. I mean, this is the theory anyway. It would have set the tone for what was to come later on down the line. Because then at that point, if BvS was good, we probably would have had a Man of Steel 2 to follow afterwards. But because BvS tanked, and I can understand the worry and concern that execs might have had because they're thinking, okay, it's Batman and Superman. This is a no-brainer. These two guys are powerhouses, of course, no pun intended, but they're obviously going to bring in a lot of money, like, you know, and it's going to be a good financial success. And obviously we didn't get that, right? And so now they're here panicking. They're looking at Marvel. Marvel's killing the game, like fucking shit up. And now DC is scrambling around being like, okay, like we just gave them our heavy hitters and that didn't work. So now we got to divert and let's just give them a Wonder Woman movie. Let's just give them, you know, let's set up others. Let's do Suicide Squad. And then they just started throwing all this random shit at the wall and nothing, it just went downhill. So
Wonder Woman didn't Wonder Woman was like
no, yeah, fair. Yeah, Wonder Woman was good. The first one, the Wonder Woman was good. But again, they started doing other stuff like the Suicide Squad and you know, eventually Aquaman, Justice League, and all that kind of stuff, and it everything tanked. No one was interested in it. So yes, to answer that question, I think if BvS was actually successful, and not just did okay or like made back its numbers, like did exponentially well. Like I'm
Also,
talking,
critically speaking, yeah.
yeah, but that's what I mean. Like you ask anyone, like, oh, Endgame, like or Infinity War, across the board, like that's a solid film. Civil War, solid film. Winter Soldier, solid film. BvS, divisive. People are like, some people hate it, some people love it. Some people love it, but just don't say anything after they watch it with their boys. So yeah, like I honestly I think had it been good, we would have gotten a Man of Steel. I think we should have had a Man of Steel before BvS though, if I'm being completely honest, because I feel like that was just shoehorned in because maybe Man of Steel, I haven't checked the numbers. I'm sure you guys know more than I do, but I'm sure Man of Steel didn't do critically what they wanted it to do. And they were hoping that by introducing Batman into the mix prematurely, that the numbers would go up. And obviously, it didn't end up that way. So they were trying to put the cart before the horse, and they ended up crashing and burning. So I think they should have just doubled down, did Man of Steel, did a solo Batman film with Ben Affleck, but just have it focus on him, and then or whoever, it doesn't really matter at that point, but have like an actual like solo Batman film, and then have the characters be introduced later on, and then from there you transition into a Justice League where you establish some of the other characters, like similar to how Marvel's initial trajectory went, where they built up solo films, and then every now and then they would have these like team up films. Do it kind of like that, like just like the format was right there, just copy and paste. Like it's not that hard.
Peace. Just use AI.
Yeah, right. So yeah.
Darcy?
I mean, I feel like T kind of hit it. Like, I'm trying to remember the original question because all I'm thinking about is the way that the T said it should have gone.
So like, should there have been a Man of Steel 2 before BvS? And
okay.
yeah, and about whether if BvS was successful critically and commercially would have made a difference.
Should it be before BvS? Yes, it should have been. To answer that question, like simply and directly, if however you left it the same way and BvS was really good, would it made a difference? No, because like if it did well, I still think we would have gotten more of what Zack Snyder was planning and in his direction. And given that like we all loved Zack Snyder's direction, then he would have just done it in the order he felt was made the most sense. So I guess we would have gotten like Man of Steel after BvS, right? But if you ask me like the way that I think it should have gone down, Man of Steel, Batman, like Man of Steel 2, which Man of Steel 2 could have set up a BvS, in that you basically have, I like the idea of like, okay, Superman just erupts into the world, right? Just explodes into the world, Man of Steel 1. It's fixed obviously in some kind of way. And then you have Batman come in and you're seeing him having like low level stuff, but maybe somewhere near the latter part of the film, there's, or at the end, it's kind of like, you know, like an end credit scene or something to the very end. Like the movie's kind of done, but then there's like a little extra 15 minutes at the end of the film where Man of Steel comes in and you're seeing Batman reacting to it, right? Like, what the hell is this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Man of Steel 2, and it's Superman like starting to like, he's paying for the mistakes, and people are questioning him, and there's some villain that's making it hard for him to convince people that he's a good guy, right? And that whole time you're layering in Batman throughout that so that you're hinting at it, and then you can lead up to like a BvS. And then that BvS is really about the coming to, is he a good guy? And he is, and then you start to want to set the foundation for a like a Justice League, but you're not really doing it yet. You're just kind of introducing the idea of a big bad. Then you get into like another film to introduce like another character, and they're introduced, and then maybe we start hitting into a Justice League because we have enough people. We can introduce the other characters when we actually get into Justice League. The other like 2 or 3 characters, right? We can introduce them kind of quickly because we built up enough universe to like hint at them and whatnot, and so we got a feel for it. That's kind of how I feel like it should have went. But yeah, would it mattered if BvS worked? I mean, if it was more fleshed out and made a little more sense, no. I think you could have done it that way too. It's just it would have had to be done slightly differently. But yeah.
So I also agree that a Man of Steel 2 was necessary. I think there was like a setting up of Man of Steel, setting up of Superman and having him do like big bad stuff and like big fighting stuff, and then have him kind of doing the human element, which they kind of like really rushed through in BvS in the original. So like kind of having like showing him to be someone who's trying to do good and it not being taken as well, as opposed to just shoving it in BvS, and then having BvS as kind of like a pre-Avengers, then doing Wonder Woman, then doing Justice League, then doing Wonder Woman, then doing Aquaman. Forget Suicide Squad because we don't need that right now, and then doing Justice League. But that's like setting up the way the MCU did it. There is an argument to be said, and ever since I posed this question to you guys, I have started to like look at it critically, because like I have subscribed to what Tactics has said. Like, you had the format right there, just copy and repeat, just like, but do it like true to the characters. But I started thinking about this like last night. I was like, what if instead they, like Warner Brothers, competently chose, and I'll even like throw in Zack Snyder, what if they competently chose to take it a different way? What if they wanted to kind of like rush in, not even rush in, that's a different word. What if they wanted to tell a superhero story but not copy MCU? How would it work in that situation? And for me, I can see them like, I found that they rushed it, and rushing it was ultimately one of the big reasons why this DCEU failed. The other main reason is they didn't understand the characters. But let's say hypothetically they decided to do character accurate films. I can't really see, like, maybe I'm just too indoctrinated in the MCU. I can't really see a unique way of setting up a cinematic universe.
Well, okay, let me ask you this. Because I know we're not really big fans of how the DC animated movies have been going as of late, but like from back in the day when the DC animated movies were really good,
they were killing it.
Yeah, but like, what was, because obviously, like, I don't hear many people talking about like the Marvel animated movies.
They suck.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? So, but like, what is it about the DC animated movies that were like from back in the day that were so good that they could use as a similar format in a live action iteration to garner some success on the DC side of things?
Okay, that's actually a really interesting question. Can I go, or Darcy, do you have a?
You go right ahead.
In my opinion, the success to the DC animated universe prior to them started adopting the New 52 stuff and going downhill after that was the commitment to the source material. Like Under the Red Hood, we all love that film. Minus a couple of portions here and there, that was like a straight adaptation, just done like really well. The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and 2, literally page to screen sometimes. Now Batman, Wonder Woman was a very accurate character version of it. Green Lantern, exact same way. Like, they understood the character cold and they didn't try to. They were telling all like I would say Green Lantern and Wonder Woman were origin films. Under the Red Hood it wasn't an origin. Well, it was an origin film for like one of the Robins, but aside from that, like everyone knows about Batman. I'm trying to remember. Was there any Superman ones back in the day? I feel like I'm forgetting one. Anyway, so these are independent stories that are focused on the story itself and not building a universe. However, they all discuss the fact that it is a larger universe. So it's easy to have them just jump in to each other after you've set everything up. Which is still kind of what MCU did.
So let me get this straight. So the solution, therefore, there is then that you would take the source material and not deviate too far from it. Just basically take it.
The difference is with the animated universe, they took specific stories of the source material. It wasn't like they went back to the beginning and did an exact duplication of that and like carry that through. It's like with Batman, they chose the story Under the Red Hood. And like, that's not an origin film whatsoever. And also technically now it's not even canon because it's been like redone a bunch of times. But it was a story that people really liked and they adapted it very accurately. Green Lantern was a kind of like a training day version of Green Lantern's origin story and also modern day origin story. So that was an interesting blend of like established genre with the origins. They kind of wrapped it around that. Like they were very loyal to the characters, but they did it about it in training day fashion. Wonder Woman was a straight up origin film, but like really focused on they were properly feminist. Not that like the Gal Gadot Wonder Woman was non-feminist, but also they really heavily leaned into the Greek mythology portion, which was not in the live action version. So like again, focus on the source material, but at the same time, they're doing a format that makes sense.
Because my thing is, and I agree with you, but I think, and I don't know if this is true to the view of whatever director is taking on one of these properties, but it's like, if I'm coming in and I'm spending, let's say the average film takes what, like 8 months to a year to make. So you're spending that amount of time adapting a film, but not being able to add any uniqueness or originality to it. You're basically just copying someone else's work and just basically shooting it. So it's kind of like it almost becomes a loveless job, because even though you love it and you want to bring it to life, it's just like, well, I feel like I wasn't really involved in the storytelling. I was just literally like reading it, looking at like the storyboard is pretty much complete. It's like you have the comic book and you basically just shoot that. And so it's like there's no real creative process that goes into making the movie when you take it page for page. So
it's like it's an adapted screenplay versus like an actual screenwriting.
Right. So do you think that is part of the issue? And like, for example, why Zack Snyder probably deviated a lot from the original source material?
That's almost a completely separate issue, because like Zack Snyder wrote or like helped directed David Goyer, who I don't respect as a writer to begin with, but the two of them basically wanted to create a Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, or like DC universe where it was cool. It wasn't who the characters were.
But that's what I mean. Like, it's like they're taking the likeness of the character, but they're not staying true to the essence
Exactly.
of who the character is, because they want to take a character that, let's say, that they love, but they want to put their own creative spin on it. Kind of like what, like, remember when they were talking about was it Superman Lives with Nicolas Cage? He was gonna be
Fighting
Superman.
a spider.
Yeah, and like it was like some shit where it's like Superman. He's like, I don't want Superman to fly, and I want, instead of like his normal suit, I want him to wear a black, like a black suit that looks like tentacles coming out of it and shit. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
My favorite was like, I want to cast someone like Sean Penn. Why Sean Penn? Because like that guy looks like he's a killer.
Yeah,
and they're like, yo, it's Superman, man.
Yeah. But yeah, do you think it's kind of along that line where it's like certain directors just kind of want to put their own creative spin on it rather than following someone else's work?
Absolutely. Like Zack Snyder and David Goyer, I think where they fundamentally went wrong was on two fronts. One, they didn't understand the characters as who they were meant to be. Mm-hmm. Second, they wanted to bring the characters into the real world and treat them like they're real people. And it's like, okay, fine. That's the boys.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you want to show that, like, Henry Cavill's Superman is going to be killing people, okay. Why are you making him Superman then? Like, it's not Superman. And so, like, deviating to that degree is a problem. But if you want to take like a Superman story and kind of like change up the origin a little bit, like okay, like Darcy was talking about in regards to My Adventures with Superman, they're changing up, they're taking lots of creative freedom with the source material, but the characters are still true.
Mm-hmm.
Darcy, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I just got an antagonizing question.
Okay.
I don't know how if I want to ask it though, because I don't want to be here all night. So as much as people, how did I put this? I already know what you're gonna say, Umar. As much
I'm gonna wait
as,
until after tactics.
As much as we can say true to the character, what is to be said about people's different interpretations of what the character is, as in based off their own perception, right? So we all have our own perceptions of things, and a character in their story, certain parts might resonate very deeply with us and other parts not, right? So what may be seen as cool and lacking in character from someone's perception may be from like your perception from somebody else's may be true to how they perceive the character. So what is to be said about interpreting something?
I'm sorry, that picture.
Yeah, I'm on board with that picture. That picture don't bother me.
Where's that from?
I don't know, man.
That is Superman and The Witcher put together.
Yeah,
I
just found it randomly.
Facts. Absolutely facts. It's all right. Sorry, Darcy, you were saying.
For instance, the thing I like and appreciate is, as much as it's nice to adapt things one for one, I don't have a very strong desire in live action just to get adaptions of comic books directly. Like, I personally, it's not what I want, and I like there to be something that makes it different and unique from everything else. And
I will subscribe to that too.
And I would say that arguably what I'm saying and the way you're interpreting it is not the same. So for instance, the way I think that you're interpreting it is like, take this core thing and then adjust it a little bit. And for me, I'm like, I'm actually more game to adjust it a lot, right? I'm more open to big shifts. Now, I would like some coreness to the character, but I like the idea of like complete reinterpretations. I just do, because I just think some of it, sometimes that's like very interesting, right? To put it in a completely different tone.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would you have felt the same way about Luffy?
Interesting question. No.
Fair enough. Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
but I mean, yeah, but I don't know how to put this. Like, it's also when you have like properties like this where there's so many different versions of Superman and there's so many different versions of Batman and all that kind
Fair
of
enough.
stuff.
Yeah, this has been like a universe has been rebooted like 7 times in my lifetime.
And there's a part to that that's just like your version, my version, and it just becomes like this debate versus like there is actually just kind of like one story, right? But yeah, anyways, I digress. You know, I just want to be antagonizing more than anything.
Tactics.
What was the question?
Like, are you in for the idea of completely revolutionizing the character?
To an extent, yes. I mean, I'm not as attached to the comic book lore as you are, Umar. Like you've been more immersed in that side of things than the both of us, me, Darcy and I. So, I know the fundamentals of Batman from the movies, the animated shows, but like very little of like the comics based, like other than what you told me.
I will say that the anime series has done some pretty strong adaptions of the comics. Like the whole introduction of Ra's al Ghul from the animated series is like taking from the graphic novels.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's tough when you like if you said that about like for example with what they did with what Justice League did with Batman, that hurt me. That broke my soul. What they did with Superman,
the Whedon version, you mean, or do you mean the Snyder version?
No, I was fine with the Snyder cut Batman.
Cool. No, I'm talking about Superman.
Oh, it's Superman. I mean, the thing is, I think I paid more attention to it as you Umar started talking about it, because you're like Superman to you is like what Batman is to me, like, and so I'm very passionate about the representation of Batman, because that dates back to my childhood. So like I'm used to a particular type of Batman, and when you deviate too far from that, it kills it for me. Like
what about Matt Reeves the Batman? Because that for me is like an example of completely changing the tone of how you display a character. For me,
really,
yeah, because
interesting. I felt that was more in line with the comics as opposed to away from it.
So
I don't know the comic.
So I get where Darcy's coming from, and what I will say is, because I feel like it's not quite Batman yet, but it's on the road to becoming Batman.
Right.
So like
agreed.
I was more tolerable to that iteration of Batman, because I know that this is just the beginning, and as he goes along, he's making mistakes. He's sloppy in Batman, right? So like it was a little jarring at first to see, like, especially when he's doing the paragliding down and then he like crashes and you're like, oh, what the fuck? Like I wasn't used to that. That's something that you see in like comedy movies, right? So it's like, what the fuck happened, right? So it was a little jarring for me. But then like when I took a step back and kind of analyzed it from that perspective of like, okay, this is like year 2 of him being Batman, so he's making the progression. So there's promise of us getting a Batman that we're all familiar with. With the Ben Affleck, like he's been Batman for like 10 years, man, and he was acting all fucked up. So I was like, even worse. So I was like, yeah, like this is the pinnacle of what we're getting right now. Like I'm not vibing with this. So they went backwards on that one. So yeah, for me, I wasn't jiving with it.
I will say that like I would have thought I would have had more of a problem with my adventures with Superman, given how they're redefining his origin story. But the fact that essence of the character, like the core of the character, not so much what he has done or what his like background is and all that sort of stuff, but the core of the character is still intact in this show for me, which makes me enjoy it. If the core of the character is being redefined, that I think is a problem, because then it's not the character anymore. Because like, yes, you're right, Darcy. Like there have been many iterations of Superman in the comics in the like 60 years. They had to, like, for crying out loud, the man had a mullet at one point. So like, and also his power levels have ranged as much as the story has requested. Like he was able to like play baseball with planets at one point, and everyone's like, I mean, one version of him literally punched a hole in the fabric of time, or time and space. So like, they do what they need to for the story, and yes, the consistent changing of iterations is natural. However, I have felt that the core character of Superman has remained consistent. If you start taking that away, then you're kind of alienating the whole purpose of the character, in my opinion. And so that's why I'm fine with changing up the origins. I'm fine with as long as it's done in like a well-rounded way that like leads to the right like character development. Was that me?
I just realized my camera just shut off. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm barely even here anymore.
You can hear us though, right?
Yeah. No, I asked the antagonizing question because I'm just hungry at this point. I'm like,
Fair.
I have 15 minutes left before I have to start fasting again, and I just wanted to be antagonizing because I'm hungry.
Fair enough. Well, any final remarks from either of you regarding this topic?
Nah, I think this dude just wants to go eat, so we can wrap this shit up.
All right, we will wrap this up.
This is okay, never mind. Go on.
I'm just gonna read out just some quick comments. So Elliot Paul is saying that he loves Cavill as Superman, but hate that his Superman was killed. And he also said that we would have loved a Batman and Superman movie based on the world's finest eps from the animated series. Amen to that, brother. Agreed. That would have been fantastic. Ron R says, I didn't really like Ben as Batman.
He had moments.
He had a nice warehouse fight. And then Chris Starr is like, there was even one time in the comic Superman had super ventriloquism and could shoot a tiny Superman out of his hand. Okay, I missed that. I missed that issue.
You can leave that out of the
that would be fucked up. But
you can miss me with that episode.
Yeah.
I do not want to see that. But anyway, nonetheless, I'm glad there is some relative understanding that like the core character is needed, but iterations and new ways of showcasing universes I'm open to it. But yeah, so I'm going to volley it to UT for our closing remarks.
All right. Well, thank you once again, everyone, for tuning in to the Geeky Bros Podcast. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. We want to increase our subscription level, so tell your friends about us. Please do it. Like I'm like legit begging you guys, like just do that. Like don't just show up in here and be like, hey guys, like I'm writing a comment, but I'm not telling my friends about us. You know, do it. All right. So anyway, I'm your boy Tactics.
Yo, I'm Black Man.
And
he's black, y'all. Because he's black, y'all.
And this is Big Geek Umar. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you guys next week. Live long and prosper, y'all. And also, yes, as Taki says, please like, favorite, and subscribe. Have a good night.